the thing I've been hit most with in 2020 is not necessarily that there are all of these calamities, like there's coronavirus, COVID-19, there are the fires that are going on, there's racial injustice, there is the crimes that are happening at our southern border. All this stuff is going on, and it's not that it's all going on right now. All this stuff has been in the making and in a relatively public eye for years. It's not like I'm the first one hearing about this. It's not like a lot of the people who have been politically engaged for the past year, 2 years, 5 years, decades are just hearing about all this stuff. It's just that, yeah, all the very conservative fears of the political scientists and social scientists and economists and everyone else, what they were predicting were like, oh yeah, these trends are going to get worse and at some point it's going to come to a head. And it has now. We're seeing all of this stuff happening. And like I said, the thing that's made me most kind of upset with 2020 is that we, as a society, allowed it to get to this point, and we're kind of responding with complacency. And a lot of that complacency has to do with the fact that we all work like 9-to-5 jobs, or many of us work 9-to-5 jobs that burn us out. Those that don't work jobs or don't work steady jobs are burned out looking for jobs, or burned out by the economic or social or psychological pressure that creates, because our society ties having a job to having the ability to live through like health insurance and having a home and all these other things. So like, I guess maybe the darker version of me is what I'm trying to say is that I think these are the kind of things that like revolutions get started over. Not bloody revolutions, but like people choosing to strike for days on end until their demands are met. People saying, we're not going to allow you to evict people in a crisis. You're going to like make it work for people, or else we're going to like close down the eviction courts or something like that. Whatever, like, why aren't these like daily mass movements going on in the streets? And like, I thought I saw some of that during the George Floyd demonstrations, and people were saying, wow, people's minds are changing. These protests are going on for days and days. The police are getting overwhelmed. They're tired of going out there every single day. We might be actually breaking them. And I was just like, no, you're not going to, because there's nothing more powerful than the drug of American exceptionalism. And with that comes individualism, the idea that everyone can work by themselves and make it through society. And even when we see that very clearly not happening, I think that's the hardest thing to kind of deprogram from people, is this idea that we can only function as individuals. We can't cooperate as a collective and get anything done. And so I think that's going to be a lot of the difficult process, is like, in Hold the Line, you provide a framework for power and activism, and it's really cohesive and it's really good there. But like, I almost have to, in my darkest moments, especially this year, wonder like, are the people ready for it, is basically what I'm saying. Like, how do you convince a public that is so complacent and sort of like jaded by everything that's going on, other than like creating a pressure cooker situation, which is going to end up being really violent? How do you really, like, it's kind of the question we had in the beginning. How do you really motivate people to take that next step and decide that, okay, I need to be active. I need to start reading some plans and making organization, because this is like do or die for the entire system that I know and love.
I would say I think what's really interesting is that one interesting that you've said, interesting thing that you mentioned was people are complacent despite seeing all of these atrocities around them. Like even like people who are directly impacted, like this even if those folks who are getting evicted right now, or like other like communities who are watching it happen, nobody really seems to be taking action a lot of the time. And I think that actually has to do with a strategy that the oppressor does a really good job of, and that is making you feel like it's your fault. Often, like, and this kind of goes in line with like how capitalism kind of works, like this whole idea of like pull yourself up from the bootstraps and everything. Like, it's your fault that you're not making enough money. It's your fault that you're homeless. It's your fault that you're sick and you I don't know, you can't get seen like at the hospital. I think that type of narrative is what kind of, once you realize that it is not your fault and explicitly start saying it is an individual that made a decision to stop you from making enough money. It is a corporation that made that active decision to take away your health care. I think like once you start using active voice instead of passive voice, you start seeing that like it's not your fault. Like it is these systems and these individuals, frankly, are the ones attacking you on a regular basis every single day. And once you see someone who's starting to attack you, I feel like you realize, oh wait, like this is not my fault. Like I can actually, there's somebody else is hurting me and I can stop them. Is I think like the thought process that we need to start going towards and away from, like, you know, for example, like the black community is just has disproportionately has higher like mortality rates. Like that is passive voice. What we should be saying is like individuals in the black community are being killed through like the deliberate cuts in funding to healthcare. Like
Yeah.
there's a change in how we talk about things that needs to happen, and it needs to be away from victim blaming. It needs to be away from blaming the individual that's actually dealing with the problem, because it's not their fault. It's not like I hate saying like, oh, you didn't go out to vote and you're the one who like didn't make the right decision, or I don't know, like it's like you were being lazy. No, they didn't go out to vote because they were prevented from voting because they work a 9-to-5 job, where like if they do not show up to work, they will literally get fired and not be able to put food on their table. You know, like it's not their fault. And once you tell them it's not your fault and that somebody's out to get, not that somebody's out to get you, but kind of somebody is kind of out to get you. I think it wakes something up in people, because and I'm speaking from personal experience. I think it woke something up in me, like just realizing that, like, you know, my like quote unquote success, or like the way like my family grew up, it's not my family's fault. Like they are not less than. And having going through that realization, I think really woke that up, and it just made me want to actually do something about it, because it actually, I think it's empowering actually to know that it is not your fault. And then it gives you that drive to figure out, okay, well, if it's not my fault, well, I'm going to stop you from making my life worse, because you know, this is something that I can do. I don't know. That's how I kind of approach like some of those thoughts. And that I feel like that's kind of like what's worked for me.
I, I
Yeah.
I like a lot of where that's coming from. I think that kind of transition, it's such a very simple thing the way you put it, but like active to passive, or passive to active voice. It's not that, oh, these things are happening and that's just, you know, life's unfair. It just happens to people. No, these are actual results. Like, as I was just saying, these are the results of things that we've been tracking in society for decades. We can look at systemic racism. We can look at sexism. We can look at poverty. We can look at all these different things as a trend. And we can also look and say, huh, isn't it really interesting that Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos have made billions of dollars this year alone, while many of their workers at their companies are struggling, or many of them are suffering? Like, how is it that the system isn't fair? And of course, life doesn't have to be fair, but our system is something that is created by people. And I think we've just lost a lot of agency in that through, I think, years of conservative propaganda, for sure. But I think a lot of the antidote to that, I think you're right, is to say, like, no, just as easily as we've been sold the propaganda of American exceptionalism, we've also been sold the propaganda of the government is big and unaccountable and you can't do anything about it. No, I mean, it is big, and at many times it can overgrow its control, and it's very close to becoming out of our control. But it's designed with a lot of kill switches, really. It's designed with a lot of different ways to kind of go in there. And yes, it's kind of labyrinthine and kind of archaic to go through all of the systems, but we can use the power that we have as people unify to pool our resources and pool our knowledge into overcoming these systems and battling these systems.